Hello friends, welcome. Today we're going to be painting a little project that involves butterflies because Tole Town's theme is butterfly kisses, I believe. It's butterfly something. Anyway, so we are going to work on a little project that I'm going to call the Lavender butterfly. And we're going to figure this out together. I hope you have a great time. And let's get started. So the project the surface I'm going to use is this arched board, and it's about, I think it's 10 by 10. So the first thing you want to do to it is you want to give it a coat of bleach sand. And one coat will do because we're going to do some other stuff on top of it. So once you get that on there and you let it dry, then I want you to go and grab your sanding block or your sanding paper and just knock down the roughness a little bit. Okay, you want a little bit smoother painting surface. I always try to sand after my base coats. And then what we're going to do is we are going to kind of dry brush some colors on this background to kind of weather it a little bit. So I've pulled out burnt umber, warm white, and morning mist. And I chose morning mist because it's kind of a gray with a little hint of purple. So we're going to kind of try to keep the background going with this purple lavender theme. So I wanted gray, but purple gray is even greater. So I like to use as big a brush as I can get away with, and I happen to have this old 2-inch that I picked up on sale somewhere. So get out your largest flat brush, and you want it to have some bleach sand in it. I put a little bit of morning mist out on my palette, and I'm just going to kind of wipe it on my palette. So I picked up a little of that morning mist, and I'm just kind of wiping it on my palette until I can feel it start to grab and get a little sticky. And then I'm going to go back to my piece. I might wipe a little bit of this out. And I'm just going to streak this. Not very dark, but it's enough to show up a little bit. But I want to streak a little bit of this morning mist. Every time I load my brush, I'm going to wipe it on my palette so it kind of gets the dry brush effect. Okay, yeah, I'm liking that. So we just want it to get kind of streaky looking. If it gets a little heavy in spots like it did there, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You may want to even go back and add more. You never know. So just gonna kind of age up this background a little bit. All right, I think I want a little bit more over here. I'll probably end up covering it up, but oh well. We can put it there and see what we get. So now I'm not even going to wipe this brush, clean the brush out. I'm going to wipe it out on my towel. You can see I do that a lot on this background. I'm going to take a little bit of burnt umber, not a lot. And again, I haven't cleaned the brush out, so it still has morning mist in it. And I'm going to blend it back in that same spot where I blended down my morning mist. And now I'm going to come through with some burnt umber. Now I'm not covering that morning mist or that bleach sand completely. I'm just adding some streaks of this burnt umber morning mist mix across here. Looks like I picked up a little bleach sand on the corner of my brush. It's okay. Okay, I'm liking that. So lastly, I'm going to come in with some warm white. I'm going to do the same thing. I haven't cleaned the brush out. It's still got all those colors in there. Getting to the tail end of my warm white there. Won't be long. I'll have to pull out another bottle. Again, blending it back into that same area. And I'm just going to pull and streak some of this warm white across here. I think I'm going to like this background quite a bit. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So now we can go ahead and wash our brush out. Let this dry. We'll put the pattern on for our lavender plants and our butterfly. Alrighty, so I'll be back. Okay, my friends, we are going to paint this lavender first. And it's kind of going to be a very different technique. It's going to be very loose. And we're going to paint the greenery and the background and the stems for the lavender with our palette knife. So I want you to get out some Irish moss, some black forest green, and some baby duck. Okay? And I'm going to move these brushes out of the way just so I can have a little bit more room to work with here. So I put on the stems for the lavender flowers just to be kind of as my guide, a suggestion of where my lavender is going to go. So I am going to, let me see if we can do this here. All right, I'm going to take my palette knife here. I have one, this pointy one, this is the kind. You can use metal or you can use this plastic one. But I'm going to pick up some, I'm not picking it up and putting it on the top. I'm picking it up more on the bottom here. And then I'm just going to kind of tap it into the black forest green so I have a mixture there. And I'm going to start at the bottom where I want my leaves to start. And I'm just going to scrape this color on here, and you're just going to continue to do that, and I think you're going to vary it a little bit. You can pick up some baby duck. You see, we're getting a very loose suggestion of the greenery on this. Okay, kind of flick it a little bit so you get some curves, and we'll come in and we'll do some. You can even come from this way and go down. But we're just going to scrape on, I guess that's the term I want to use. We're going to scrape on this look of greenery that's going to be on our, behind our lavender, okay? Now I do want it to be a little shorter out here on the edges, so I'm going to go over here and add just a few short ones. Okay, and we'll go and we'll work on this rough line right here with more definite color. So now what I want to do is I want to take the side edge of my palette knife, and I'm going to set in those stems for my lavender. Okay, they don't have to go all the way down. I'm going to get lost in those leaves. Let's put one over here. And we've got a short one over here. So we've got our stems for our lavender. So now I'm going to just come in and pull some darker looking leaf things. Leaf things, that's a technical term. Okay, and maybe pull a little lighter up there. So we're not going for realistic looking leaves, we're going for the suggestion of leaves. If you go over your stems that you just pulled on here, you're of course gonna kind of wipe them out, so you don't want to do that. So just kind of pull yourself some leaves, or the suggestion of leaves on here. I'm gonna tap in a little bit of light down here along the bottom. Okay, so this is very loose, very up to interpretation, right? Up to your interpretation of what you think your leaves should look like. And I'm going to put a little bit more in there. So just kind of play with it. Don't play with it too much. If it's getting where you don't like it, stop. Just stop. Which I should probably do. All right, I think just one more little dark one in there. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to work on our lavender itself. All right, so we are going to be giving ourselves some lavender now. We're going to do that by painting it with Q-tips. All right, so I've got out 3 colors. I've got Diox Purple, Purple Petal, and Warm White. And what I want to do is I want to pick up some Diox Purple and a little bit of Purple Petal on my Q-tip. These aren't the best Q-tips. It doesn't have to be the best Q-tips. But what we're going to start doing is just kind of popping down. Let's get a little bit more Diox Purple, some lavender. Okay, so I'm going to set this, and don't get them too fat. They don't need to be too fat. And I'm going to start with the taller ones first. Don't make them all the same height or the same width, but just pop them down. First with Diox Purple with a little bit of Purple Petal in there. I'll bring this one down a little bit too. And like this guy is kind of folding over on itself, so I want to kind of watch that. You're going to have some shorter ones. Okay. And let's just get these going on the stems here. Right, I'm gonna get a different Q-tip just because I can. Q-tips are cheap, you don't have to clean them. It's kind of nice. All right, let's do this little one that's going over. It's actually going to go behind our butterfly. And I think I want to put a little one in this middle here, just to break that up. All right, so now I'm just going to pick up some purple petal and some warm white, and I'm going to tap on some lighter little bits of lavender here. And it's okay if it keeps the round shape of the Q-tip, it'll be just fine. And if it blends into that Diox purple, that's okay too. Just want to highlight a little bit. These will be the quickest little lavenders you'll ever do. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Deciding I'm going to paint my finger over here. You don't need very much purple petal, really, especially if your Diox purple is still pretty wet. All right, so I'm going to throw that Q-tip away, and I'm going to just pick up straight warm white and just kind of pop the tops a little bit on some of them. Some of them might not need it. Okay. Cool. Let's put a little bit more over here. All right. Now, what we want to do is we want to take a round brush. No, this is a liner. This is a number 4 liner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my number 4 liner, load it with some Irish moss, and kind of tip into my black forest green. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add some definite little short leaves. They don't have to be perfect. Along this bottom edge, just to kind of disguise that a little bit. Make it look more like it's got a kind of an edge that's coming out of the dirt a little bit. And if there are other, you want to add some more definite other leaves, that's fine too. It's completely up to you. But I just kind of wanted to make this bottom edge look a little more, I don't know, leafy. All right. I think I'm going to pull some definite leaves through here. Not a lot. just enough. And let's get one in here. And get rid of my hair. My hair falls out so easily. All right. Now this one is looking a couple of these are looking too stripy to me, so I'm going to come back in with my purple petal and some warm white. I'm just going to kind of pounce on them a little bit. Get rid of some of the stripiness. And maybe pick up some Diox purple. Stick it back in there on the edge. Yeah, I like that. Softening that dark side up a little bit. So this could be something that you end up playing with back and forth. For a long time if you let yourself. Yeah, there we go. We're getting ourselves what looks like some lavender on here. And let's do this last one over here. All right, so we're going to let this dry, and we're going to start working on our butterfly. So I painted his little body in with purple petal. It's just a little series of ovals and a circle for his head. I'm going to work on this back area here. I'm going to paint this bottom wing, the outer part of it, with some what used to be called Indian turquoise. I believe it's called turquoise blue now. And I could probably get myself a little bit bigger brush. Yeah, that'll go quite a bit faster. A little bit of too much water in there. Turn this butterfly around a little bit. All right. That didn't take too long. And I'm going to paint this lower section on the front wings with some Irish moss with just a hint of turquoise in it. I want it to be more green, but I wanted it to have a little hint of blue in it. So just pick up some Irish moss and then pick up a little turquoise blue. And that kind of tones down that Irish moss a little bit. And I'm going to paint this. Now, it's going to go right over that one lavender stalk. Okay. I know the butterfly isn't really purple yet, but we will be adding hints of purple to it. In fact, we'll add some right now. I'm going to paint the top of his front wings with that purple petal. And we are going to add a lot of tints and stuff to this butterfly, so it's going to change the way it looks a lot. These are kind of sheer base coats, so we'll come back in and add another coat to them when they're dry. All right, and now what I want to do is I want to pick up some dioxazine purple and some of that turquoise and mix, probably 1 to 1. That's going to really kind of mute down that diox purple. And this one we need to get a smaller brush to paint with. I can't get my big old 1/2 inch flat in there. So diox purple plus Indian turquoise, about 1, turquoise blue. I'm going to call it Indian turquoise forever because that's what's on the top of the bottle. All right, almost there. All right, and now this tail here, we want to go ahead and paint that in with that same color. So I'm going to come back and give the green, the light purple, and the blue another coat. Okay, so I will be back. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to float a little bit of shading on the background behind the butterfly and around the lavender, and I'm also going to go around the outside edges, and I'm going to do that with some very well blended out burnt umber. And what I mean when I say very well blended out is I'm going to corner load my brush, and as I blend it on my palette, I'm going to walk away from that line just so I leave more paint on the palette. All right, I'm going to take a larger brush, and this is going to be a little bit heavier float, and I'm going to go all the way around the outside edge of my plaque with burnt umber. So this is going to be a little bit heavier, a little bit stronger. You want to know that you floated this side edge with burnt umber. And again, mopping is not a bad thing. All right, so let's work on this butterfly a little bit. I'm gonna dry brush some highlighting on the green sections with Baby Duck. Don't need too much. I'm gonna keep that mostly towards the top edge. I'm going to float a little bit of shading in the bottom of each of those green sections with some Black Forest green. I also want to get out a little bit of Indian turquoise blue. I'm going to forever call it Indian turquoise. That's just the way it's going to be. All right, so first what I want to do is I want to float that shading with Black Forest green. I'm going to do it in the bottom of each of those three sections, and then I'm also going to do it right along this front skinny section to separate it, because this is one wing and then this is the forward wing. Okay, so Black Forest green, you want to blend it out. It is fairly transparent already, but we just want to make sure that it's really transparent. Okay, so got a little too transparent. You can't even see it. And I am treating each section as its own section. Bring a little out of that one. Clean that up. And then this section. Okay, I'm going to dry that so that I can do that little float to separate the front wing from the back wing without lifting too much. So still Black Forest green. Let's get over here where you can see the actual butterfly. I'm going to float right down this section. To separate them. I want to go ahead and float a highlight across the top of those green sections. I'm going to do that with Baby Duck. Just to make them a little bit more noticeable. And I stuck my arm in some paint, but that's not unusual. All right. So let's try that again. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to float these areas again with some Indian turquoise, turquoise blue, whatever your bottle says. Will depend on when you bought it. Because I want to bring some blue in there. It's just kind of a tint of blue at the base of each of these sections. And then make sure you get it in this front section. You could walk that up a little bit. Okay. So we're going to leave that be for a minute. We're going to go to the body of our butterfly, which is painted in purple petal. And I'm going to get out some warm white. I'm going to float a highlight across the top of each of those little sections of his body, excluding that little pointy tail part. So I just want to get a little touch of warm white in the top of each of those. All right, so as long as we're doing that, we can float a highlight across the top of the upper part of the front wing. And that's also going to be with warm white. And again, treat each of these little sections on the wings as their own sections. All right. So the little body, I'm going to float some Diox purple in the bottom of each of those body sections, except the very last one. So Diox purple, which is a teeny tiny corner load, going in the bottom, little C strokes, except that last section. I'm not going to do it on that last section. We're going to do something else to that. So I need to dry brush some highlighting on the purple part of the wings, and I'm going to do that with warm white. I'm going to pull that probably 2/3 of the way down. And then we'll go ahead and we'll float the Diox purple at the base of that those front wings. Again, this little part here is the wing behind. I kind of want to walk that color up a little bit. Right, so don't hurry this float. You know, take your time. And again, if you like to mop, That works well here. One more little section. Right, so I'm going to come back and float that highlight on the top of those wings again, just to brighten it up a little bit. It kind of dulled itself down, and I really want it to be a little brighter. So it's still with warm white. I'm just floating it again, leaving a little bit more paint down. And it doesn't have to be a perfect float. These are butterfly wings. They're not perfectly smooth or anything. So if they're a little choppy, that's perfectly fine. So you can breathe a sigh of relief now. All right. Let's dry that. And then I can get in and float to separate the front wing from the back wing. I'm going to do that with that Diox purple. All right. Probably. There we go. I want to also deepen this black forest green float that's separating the front and back wing, because it's just kind of got lost. So I'm just going to deepen that a little bit. All right, now it looks like there's a wing in front of each of a wing. And just a touch of warm white just in this little top corner. Let's go ahead and do this one too. Okay. So we can go ahead and take that warm white and float up the back side of each of those sections. Sorry. Just to reinforce those. Well, then we're going to come back and we're going to float Diox purple on the other side of that warm white float. Alrighty. And let's go ahead and float some Black Forest green in that bottom wing. To separate those sections. we're going to float a little bit of Indian turquoise on that last little section of the body. We're going to float Indian turquoise in the top and Irish moss in the bottom. Just going to add a little bit of green to that last little section. Just because we can. All right. Okay, let's go to this little pointy tail thing. And what I want to do is I want to get out some of my purple petal. And this is going to be kind of opposite, but I'm going to float a lighter color purple petal plus some warm white, probably 1:1. I want it to be a little lighter, but still have the purple. I'm going to float that across the bottom of that little tail thing. Whew. Got a little big there. There we go. Kind of looks like orchid. And I'm going to go ahead and mop that to soften it. So we'll let that dry. And let's go to these purple sections and we'll float with that purple petal warm white mix across the top of them. This back section, you're going to do the little curved parts too. This goes on pretty bright, but it tones down. I think you can see that on the tail already, that it's really calmed down. I think I need to reinforce that turquoise blue on the top of that back section of his body. And I think I'll pull just a little bit onto the neck section. Okay, so I floated again with turquoise blue, and then I went ahead and floated on that second to the last round section. Now the tail thing, the pointy tail, I'm going to float Diox purple across the top of it. All right, and this is going to change a lot when we add a little bit of yellow to it. What I want to do first is I want to float a highlight with that turquoise blue and plus warm white along this outside edge of this, the back part of this wing. So I'm going to do turquoise blue plus warm white. And I'm just going to float across the top of each of those little sections. Even this little back section here. All right. And then we want to also dry brush highlighting on those sections with warm white. I think I have a smaller, maybe not. So just warm white. And I'm going to dry brush on each section individually. And with the True Blue, I'm going to float shading at the bottom of each section. True Blue is very intense, so blend it out really well. But not that well, apparently. Better to be lighter. I'm going to walk the color up in each section. That's better. A little more blue. See, I got a little darker towards the bottom, so I'm going to go back and darken up these other ones. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect float because it's butterfly wings. So now what we want to do is we want to start adding some of the little spots and stuff onto the wings. So on these front purple parts of the wings, you're going to take some Irish moss, and you can put the pattern on. It's on the pattern, but all they are just kind of ovals of Irish moss. This section gets 2. All right, and then the blue section gets Irish green, like triangles. So we're just adding spots. And if you want to change the design that goes on the wings, it's fine. Won't hurt my feelings. We want to get out some dragon fruit. We're going to add some little designs with dragon fruit. So there are some smaller little dots or circles. at the base of these purple, the purple part of the wings. They don't necessarily line up. Okay. And then on these green sections, we're going to do triangles. And we also want to put a little bit of that dragon fruit on what would be its head here. In this purple part, we're going to use some black forest green, and we're just going to give it a little oval. Okay. Now we're going to need some soft black. So just a little soft black. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some little detail things to these little spots and stuff that we added. I'm just going to set down a smaller oval in the bottom. And I'm going to try not to get that dragon fruit all over. In the bottom of those green ovals, and I'm going to put a little dot in the center of each of those dragon fruit circles. There's a little oval inside the dragon fruit triangles. And again, a little set down oval at the bottom of those green triangles. Now, on these triangles, we're just going to kind of line the tip of each of those little triangles. Probably pull a little. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and do his antenna and his little feet. So I'm going to go ahead and do those with my liner brush and soft black. Try to keep your fingers or your hands out of the soft black that you just put on there. So it's kind of like an elongated comet stroke. And the feet are the same way. Okay, so I'm going to go get some marigold. So you're going to work with your liner brush, and we're going to outline and add some details to these wings with your liner brush and thinned marigold. I didn't want to use the baby duck. It's a little too bright of a yellow. So what we're going to do first is we're going to line the bottom edge of the body. So you want to stay as thin as you can. And line his little body along the bottom edge. And that includes that little long tail part. I'm also going to outline each of the wings and each of the sections. So this is going to be important for you to stay up on the tip of your brush. And try not to drop your brush. Whew. Nothing like adding a little tint, right? All right, so I'm probably not going to talk much while I'm doing this, because apparently I can't talk and paint at the same time. To define those wings a little bit more. So just take your time and add this little outline of marigold. But it's worth it. I'm going to also take some of this marigold and just line it, or stroke it in the top of each of those little green ovals and triangles. And let's go ahead and put it in a little touch in those green ones. I didn't do anything to the pink ones. I'm going to add a little touch inside the top of that pink spot on his head. All right, I think I want to brighten some of these up a little bit, so I'm going to take some warm white with just a touch of marigold, and just kind of highlight some of those little strokes. Doesn't have to be all of them. But it does make a difference. Let's get some down on this lower wing. Kind of highlighting the points in the lower wing. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight in these separations here. All right, I think that looks pretty good. I think I want to, still with the marigold warm white, thin down liner brush, I'm gonna just outline those little circles, those little pink circles around the bottom of them to make them stand out a little bit more. Okay, yeah, I like that. And let's go ahead and outline just the front edge of those pink triangles. So now I think we can go ahead and go to our lettering. So I'm going to back up a little bit, and I put the pattern on for my lettering, and I'm going to go ahead and paint this lettering with my liner brush. This one is a number 1 liner, and I'm going to do it with that soft black. So you want to thin it down, and you just want to take your time. You don't want to rush. Okay, so I'm going to turn this to the side so I can do this first letter, this first word. And it's going to be kind of thick, thin with your brush. All right. So as much as you can. You don't have to do it like you're writing with a pencil. You can, or a pen. You can break it up. Okay. And just take your time. It's not a race. You don't even have to stay on the pattern, apparently. Got one word done. Now the script writing, the and Garden Company, those are done with script handwriting. The Lavender Butterfly is printed. And this one, you can take your same liner brush and flatten the tip out. And I will go through and do all my verticals, or if it's a curve, I'll probably do those too. I like to come through and do verticals first, and then come back and do my horizontals. So I'm going to come back and do my horizontals. We go back to our verticals and our curves. To our script again, our handwriting. So what we want to do to this now is we want to put some kind of edge on here, because if we don't, your eye is going to look at the design, read the lettering, and then it's going to travel off the piece, and you're going to be gone before it's you've had time to enjoy what you painted here. So I'm going to take a flat brush and kind of corner load it. Don't blend it out, just pick up some paint. And I'm just going to go ahead and squiggle an edge on this. And I think you can see already that this is kind of framing the design and making your eyes stop and focus on the center just a little bit longer. So I'm going to do this all the way around the edge. You could do the same thing with just a stripe. But this is just a quick and easy way to kind of frame in your design so people will look at it and enjoy it a little longer than their brain would let them if it didn't have a border around it. I'm also going to come back and line a little highlight on the lettering, I think, and maybe float a little bit of a shadow to one side. I'm going to take my liner brush and some warm white, and I'm just going to highlight a little bit on these letters, not too much, just here and there, mainly vertically. Just to give them a little bit more interest. So that helped pop these letters off of the lavender. So now I'm going to come in with some burnt umber, blend it out really well. Let's reinforce this ground here a little bit. And then just just going to go inside, or to the right side anyway, of these letters. Again with the fingers to tone it. All right. Almost done. All right. So let's back up a little bit so you can see the whole thing. I think I'm going to, there's a little bit of a watermark here from when I floated shading around that butterfly. So I'm just going to come in, kind of wipe that out. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it. I mean, it's quick and easy. We used a palette knife, we used Q-tips, and we used our regular painting, our regular brushes. And we created this cute little sign for the Lavender Butterfly Garden Company. I hope you had a great time, and I hope you'll join me again the next time I paint for Tole Town.